Hello my friends and welcome back. The last video of this year. So after this one, I'll see you next year. I've always wanted to say this. Well, before I start, I want to make a thing clear. I've gotten some comments. What is this? Am I a cyborg? Is this my voice box? No, this is a microphone. I have a wireless microphone and this makes sure you can hear me correctly. In this video, my friends, you can see another unit of Ukrainian troops finishing their training in the UK and leaving the training site. And we can see the British soldiers giving them a military salute. Because these guys, they trained together for weeks and now the Ukrainian soldiers are going to go to war. These British troops don't know if they're going to see their friends again. They become friends. They spend weeks together training, and then these Ukrainian troops, it is a lot of fun for them to be in UK for training. They're treated very well. They are being trained at very high level, and then they go to a hellhole called Avdiivka or Bakhmut or Kupiansk direction. For the last video of the year, I do want to send my gratitude to the British. They have outdone themselves. The British, when this war started, they announced that they're going to train 10,000 Ukrainian troops at the time. So 10,000 are trained, then another 10,000 are rotated in. And this is one of the main points, to train the troops, because this is what Russia lacks. They have cannon fodder. Russian man as a flesh body is intended for Putin to soak up Western ammunition. Ukrainian infantryman is a different animal, trained, motivated, wants to fight, knows what he's fighting for, his family back at home. And this is what we can give them as the collective West: training and weaponry and ammunition. Also, I haven't talked about how expensive it actually is. Housing 10,000 soldiers in your country, and you need hundreds of officers, if not thousands, to train these guys, and that for weeks. The food, living conditions, everything, it is a lot of money. So thank you UK. Now my friends, look at the map. Northern front, Kupiansk. Russia has been pushing in this area almost non-stop for the past year. The big Kupiansk offensive started about 4 months ago and it resulted in chaos. Russians lost about 100 armored personnel carriers in this axis, where they have not quit. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the video because YouTube overlords don't like it, but I can describe what happened. Last night, Russians sent 4 new armored vehicles to the Ukrainian defensive positions, and within minutes of reaching Ukrainian firing distance and firing sectors, they were chewed up. Check out the description. First, the leading main battle tank with mine-clearing gear found what it was looking for, a mine, which blew the entire front part of the vehicle to pieces. Yeah, so this was a tank with a mine trailer, however you call it, attached to the front, which was supposed to be anti-mine. Well, it found a mine, and on the video you can see it is vaporized. It's blown to space, the turret goes to the moon. I guess it was too strong of a mine or too weak of a mine trail. Then chaos erupted and the entire column gets stuck. The second main battle tank and 1 BMP-2 got destroyed shortly after, and in a video it's about 15 seconds later. One goes, 15 seconds later another one goes, and then there's only one left. The last surviving BMP-2 made his last-ditch effort to charge mindlessly forward and blew himself up at the same minefield which took out the first main battle tank. Ukrainians end their misery with a rain of cluster munitions, which you can also see on the video. So it's boom, 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 cluster munitions. And this is a very common pattern. Also, this minefield is clearly visible, clearly identifiable, and it's in a logical position on an open field where Ukrainians don't want Russians to cross. So what do the Russians do? They go full at it, demilitarizing the mines with their tanks. I mean, it's genius if you think about it. You see, Ivan, we destroy Ukrainian mine with tank, so next tank can go through. Genius. Now, my friends, I'll read you a Russian telegram chatter translated by Dmitry, and I want to bring out the hypocrisy. I don't know how to say this word. Hypocrisy. Well, you understand what I'm saying. I'll read it from here. The special operation will continue. Its goal will remain the disarmament of the Ukrainian troops and the rejection of the current Ukrainian state from the ideology of neo-Nazism. That's the main point and main idea of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, to denazify Ukrainians. You know, that's what Putin sells to its people. And on the next photo, this same Telegram shares a photo of Zaluzhny, the leader, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, standing next to a rabbi, a Jewish spiritual leader. Of course, we all know the old story that Zelensky is partly Jewish, but here also is Zaluzhny being very familiar with the rabbi. And we do know that in the Ukrainian armed forces there are Jewish attachments, and Jewish people are allowed to practice their religious, I don't know how to call them, I don't want to say any wrong words here, but I've seen Jewish rabbis with Ukrainian uniforms that are allowed to perform what they need to do according to their religion in the armed forces of Ukraine. And in this photo, yeah, we see Zaluzhny. So I don't know how the Russians themselves don't see the hypocrisy in this telegram or in their chatter that at one point Ukrainians are neo-Nazis, and on another point, their leader or chief of staff of the armed forces of Ukraine is very familiar with the Jewish rabbi. In my head, these two sentences or situations cannot be together. But for Russians, it's not a problem to point fingers and then suddenly share this photo. But now, my friends, Finland. Yes, Suomi mainitu perkele. This is 1,000 additional kilometers of NATO border. Finland is now in NATO, and Simo Hauha can sleep in peace, doesn't have to wake up to shoot another 500. Well, the Russians don't like this, because this area, the Murmansk peninsula right here, and all of this, I will zoom in on the map, you can see it's lakes and swamps. These blue dots here, it's untraversable landscape most of the time. There are a few roads, as you can see, but mostly this part is very difficult to travel to, very difficult to push armored vehicles or any military logistics into this area. You can use a few roads, and if these roads are bombarded or blocked somehow, you are screwed. So this is a huge issue for the Russians, because now they have to build out the border and send additional military capabilities to this border, and they don't have the infrastructure for it. Anyway, the news is that Putin is now pushing their newest self-propelled Howitzer, the Koalicja, to the Finnish border. And I want to talk about Koalicja for a little moment. This was Koalicja at its first prototype. It was a dual-barrel self-propelled Howitzer, and here we can see the two prototype in existence. Now, they changed it up. You can see it's a fever dream. It's much like the Third Reich in its final years, when the mustache man, you know what I'm talking about, Third Reich, you know, he was dreaming up these Wunderwaffes and hoping these Wunderwaffes and his imaginary armies would push back the Allied liberation of Europe. This is very much the same situation. Now, this dual barrel does not give much to the Russians that they didn't have before, or the Soviets. Two barrels. See, what's the point of the Western artillery is that it's one barrel, it shoots, and the ammunition is becoming less and less of an area weapon like it is for the Soviets, and more an extremely precise needle pinpoint targeting weapon. Sorry for the confused explanation. The point is, what Russians are lacking is accuracy, because they cannot produce barrels and ammunition which is as accurate as the West. So what they're trying to make up for it is more area to be covered with more saturation of artillery cells. So a genius Ivan thinks, let's add another barrel. Now that is not going to do much, because you do need shells, and Russians are lacking artillery shells much like Ukraine. When they realize that, they cut the second barrel. The only way to go is more accurate, not more shells, because producing the shells is an issue. I do have to say, it looks very cool. But it's all Germany's Wunderwaffes in the 40s also looked very cool, but they didn't do anything. Only prototypes that couldn't change anything. Now supposedly Koalicja finally with one barrel has entered mass production in Russia, which is the official news, so we should take it with a grain of salt. This means we don't know the production issues, we don't know the logistical issues. If the news is that it has entered mass production, perhaps the reality is that they will produce 1 or 2 per month, maybe more. We don't know. The point is, the official news was, and it might be an info op to deter the Finnish, that these new Howitzer, the best self-propelled howitzers that Russia has, better than the Western howitzers according to them, is now stationed at the Finnish border, the northern border. Now Finland, being one of the biggest artillery armies of Europe, definitely has to put something against it. Now if I was the Russians, I would not mess with the Finnish. We remember the Winter War. The Undertaker, the small guy, beat up the big guy. It was finally still a Soviet victory, and Finland had to give 11% of the territory to Russia. That includes Viborg, which was Viipuri before. It was a full Finnish city, and all of the Finnish had to go and evacuate. And now it's a full Russian city. And the Finnish don't even want it back because it's fully Russian. What are you going to do with it? You want tens of thousands of Russians? Nobody wants it. A little interesting fact for you that after the Peace of Tartu, which was made after the Estonian War of Independence of 1918 to 1920, the Soviet Union and Estonia made a peace settlement officially signed by the Soviet leadership, which gave Estonia this area, which I'm playing around with my mouse right now. Now, according to the paper and the agreements, this should be Estonia, but it's not. It's Russia. Some Estonians are thinking, okay, let's take it back. But I say, why? We have issues with Narva because it's filled with not Estonian-speaking population, so it's a security threat for Estonian country. Why should we have another area like that? My friends, I'm sure you heard about it, and it's quite funny, but it is actually a reality, the egg wars in Russia. Due to Western sanctions, not directly but indirectly, very much indirectly, the egg prices have soared in Russia, in some places many times. And since the festive part of the year is here, which is New Year's and Russian Christmas, which is coming up on the 6th of January, eggs are the main thing. It's extremely important in Russian cuisine. And if you think, oh, it's funny, oh, egg prices rise a little bit, I will read you a report of how serious it actually is in Russia. In Russia, an attempt was made to kill the owner of the largest poultry farm, all because of eggs. Gennady Shiryayev, the head of the Tretyakov poultry farm in the Voronezh region, and a former regional Duma deputy, was driving his Volkswagen on the Kursk-Saratov highway. 2 kilometers from his house, an unknown person fired twice at his SUV. Shiryayev suffered no injuries. Now the shooter is being searched for. The owner and the leader of the largest egg producer company in Russia is attacked because egg prices are soaring. Russians are very vulnerable. They're not vulnerable to Putin's propaganda, but they're vulnerable if egg prices are rising. The official Russian information to the people is that the egg prices are rising because of increased living quality of the Russian people, which means they want to consume more meat and cheese and eggs. This is the official explanation, which is of course bogus. The real truth is it's connected to Western sanctions indirectly because the process of producing eggs, let's call it like that, it is connected to software and hardware that was very strongly tied to West and Western producers. Now this software and hardware is under sanctions, meaning it will not be renewed or updated, which will very directly rise the egg prices because some of the machinery will break down and the software doesn't work anymore. And Russians don't like that. They're ready to kill the factory owners to get the egg prices back down. And now we're gonna look at some egg memes from Russia because they're juicy and you're gonna love them. Dear Vatniks, I have an oligarch's worth of eggs and I've thoroughly enjoyed my 3-egg omelette this morning. All this could be yours for the low price of getting rid of Putin and leaving Ukraine. You'll be much happier. Sincerely, everyone. And look at this. This is what Russia looked like in the 90s pretty much. But yeah, everybody wants them eggs. It's Gennady Shiryayev, the head of the Tretyakov poultry farm in the Voronezh region. Girls are whispering. If you own a chicken farm in Russia, you're right now the king of the country. Alright, my friends, now I'll bring you some stories of Russian soldiers who have gotten wounded and they're sent home, and what Russian Ministry of Defense has promised for the entirety of this war is you get 1,000,000 rubles if you are wounded from here. If you die, your family gets like more money. Everything is promised, but usually when soldiers die, they're not pronounced dead, they're pronounced missing, so the Ministry of Defense don't have to pay the families. And when the soldiers do get actually injured and it's in everybody's faces that they are injured and you cannot hide it, this is what happens. I'll read to you. A Russian mobilized man was given 2 pockets of carrots and a bag of onions instead of 3 million rubles for his being wounded. Oleg Ryubkin, a mobilized man from Volgograd region, was denied a payment of 3 million rubles or 32k after being wounded. Local authorities gave his family 2 pockets of carrots and a bag of onions instead of... So you get wounded? Well, молодец, here are carrots for you. Fuck, everything is good. You can treat the wounds with some carrots and onions. Now, my friends, we'll talk about artillery shells. I mentioned the Howitzer self-propelled howitzer before, 2 barrels. Well, it's a stupid idea because Russia is lacking artillery shells. And I know many of you in the West are finding it as Ukrainian propaganda or Western propaganda. Russia has artillery shells, such a big country. Well, if they would, why would they import them from North Korea then? On this photo you can see the logistical chain of artillery shells being imported from North Korea, and it's an insanely long journey. But these shells do make it. Now the issue with these is Russian soldiers from the front have been uploading videos of these shells exploding in the barrels since they're made so poorly. Making artillery shells is extremely difficult due to the fact that they have to be so precise, small imperfections and it explodes in the barrel or the firing mission is very imprecise. Well, in North Korean case, some of them are rusty, some of them don't fit the barrel, some of them explode in the barrels, killing the troops around them. But I'll read you the report. North Korea has not only reduced, but probably even increased ammunition shipments after United States and South Korean intelligence agencies reported in the fall that it began supplying Russia with weapons used in the war against Ukraine. This was evident by satellite images recording the turnover of containers between the Korean port of Rehi and the village of the Danube in Primorsky Krai. And we're talking up until now up to 1 million shells exported into Russia. Now it does make a difference because most of these shells do fire. I mean, there's a huge percentage of darts and imperfect shells, but most of them do fire, and it's a huge issue for Ukrainians. So this is why it's only natural I put the next news here, and you're going to like it. We talked about it for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I stand behind it fully. And I know this idea is led by Estonia, and I can be proud about it. The United States are forwarding a plan to the G7 to confiscate the Russian assets in the West. Around 300 billion USD are currently frozen in the Western banks. I would say this money be used as soon as possible to buy ammunition, weaponry, humanitarian supplies, medical supplies, everything Ukraine needs right now. A lot of people are saying this money should be used to rebuild Ukraine. I do agree with the idea and the area of the idea, but I would say use it right now because there's nothing to rebuild if we don't repel Russia right now. And what Ukraine needs right now is firepower. Mostly firepower and ammunition. So now what I would not do is send this money to Ukraine. What I would do is buy Western ammunition, Western weaponry, and send a lot of that to Ukraine. And finally, the United States announced a new aid package for Ukraine of 250 million USD, arms and ammunition. The package includes air defense munitions, other air defense system components, additional munitions for HIMARS, 155 and 105 artillery ammunition, anti-armor munitions, and over 15 million rounds of small arms ammunition. This is what keeps the Ukrainian war effort and defense active and effective. The United States with their regular aid packets. Now, looking at these, I'm very thankful for the US government and the US people for doing this. But I do want to say the reminder for Europe that as much as US is doing now, Europe needs to pick up the slack and surpass United States in combined aid given and to be given in the future. Right now, Europe is sleepy a bit. They rely on the US with the false sense of security that somebody somewhere is going to help me when I need it. Now, this is a trap. EU needs to wake up. And as I said, I do notice every country who has given anything to Ukraine. We're talking about UK, Germany has given a lot, so much. We're talking about Denmark, Norway, Finland, almost all of the countries in the EU. I'm just saying it needs to be stepped up many times. And now, my friends, for the last time in 2023, last time this year, next time, next year, I will butcher the Patreon names. It's my favorite part of the video, and these people are my security net. They give me a possibility to focus more of my energy towards helping Ukraine. We have a big new Patreon, Morgan Lamb, thank you. Jeffrey Avaret, Bill Arnold. And this name, it gotta be Polish or Lithuanian. I think it's Polish. I will try. Skifivklas. or it's like Slovakian or Slovenian, something in insane language, like hellish language. Plus. Thank you. Julius Hausl. Thank you to these Patreons. And to all of you, thank you for sticking with me this year of 2023. All other pro-Western, pro-Ukrainian military bloggers, this is a combined war against the West. It is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. It is a war between Russia and the West. And it is unfortunately being fought in Ukraine. So we need to help them as much and as soon as we can. Actually, right now. This is what I'm going to do in 2024 in the USA. I'm going to give you all a possibility to directly contribute to Ukrainian victory. Keep an eye on my channel to be notified about the updates, and in February I'll be in the United States. Thank you, my friends, for supporting Ukraine and for supporting Estonia. Until my next video, which will be on the 2nd of January, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.